Trump wants Greenland. Canada holds the Arctic. Donald Trump is talking about taking Greenland again. And this time, Europe is not laughing. If you are Canadian and you think this is Denmark's problem, you are about to get a geography lesson. Because the moment Washington puts pressure on Greenland, Canada becomes unavoidable. And the part nobody wants to say out loud, you cannot control the Arctic without going through Ottawa. Here is what we know, clean and verified. President Donald Trump has renewed public rhetoric that the United States needs Greenland for national security. He has refused to rule out force when asked how far that interest could go. That triggered immediate pushback. Greenland's leadership said Greenland is not for sale. Denmark said any attempt to take Greenland would violate sovereignty and international law. European governments publicly backed Denmark. This is no longer treated as a joke. It is treated as pressure. Let's kill the nonsense right now. Trump does not want Greenland because it's big and empty. He wants it because it sits at the center of Arctic power. Reason number one, early warning and missile defense. Greenland hosts Pitufik space base. That base is critical for ballistic missile early warning, space surveillance, tracking launches from Russia across the polar route. That's not Trump theory. That's Pentagon reality going back decades. If you care about seeing threats first, Greenland matters. Now, zoom out. Russia has heavily militarized its Arctic coastline. China openly calls itself a near Arctic state. The Arctic is no longer frozen insulation. It's becoming a highway. From Washington's point of view, if the US does not dominate Arctic infrastructure, someone else fills the gap. Greenland sits between North America, Europe, and the Arctic Ocean. Control Greenland, and you anchor one side of the board. Here is the part that makes Canadians uncomfortable. You cannot supply Greenland, defend Greenland, reinforce Greenland without Canada. Not politically, not militarily, not logistically. Look at the map. Greenland is not an island floating in space. It's part of a North American Arctic system. And that system runs through Canada. If the US expands Arctic posture around Greenland, it needs Canadian Arctic airspace for transit and refueling. NORAD infrastructure that runs through Canada. Search and rescue coordination under Canadian responsibility. Logistic routes that cross Canadian territory. Greenland plus Alaska does not equal Arctic control. Greenland plus Canada does. That's not bravado. That's geometry. Here is what almost nobody says on cable news. NORAD only works if Canada and the United States move together. Radar upgrades, missile warning, command integration. If Washington pressures Greenland aggressively, it implicitly pressures Canada's role inside NORAD. Ottawa becomes the hinge. And hinges don't scream. They decide whether the door opens. Let me put this in normal language. NATO is a neighborhood watch. Everybody promises to show up if someone breaks in. But what happens if the biggest guy on the block starts hinting he might kick in your door because he needs your garage for security? Everybody freezes. That's why Greenland rattled Europe. And that's why Canada suddenly matters more than it admits. This is not about missiles. Territory equals leverage. The Arctic is tied to future shipping routes, energy transit, critical minerals. Greenland's value grows as ice retreats. And when great powers start thinking long term, they stop talking about cooperation and start talking about control. That's why Denmark reacted so sharply. They know security arguments never stay security only. Notice what Canada has not done? No chest thumping, no megaphone diplomacy, no panic. That's smart because Canada does not need to escalate to matter. Canada's leverage is structural, geography, infrastructure, alliance necessity. The louder Washington gets, the more Canada can quietly price cooperation. So let's talk about what we know versus what we don't. What we know first. Trump has renewed pressure rhetoric on Greenland. He frames it as a national security requirement. Denmark and Greenland have rejected it. Europe has publicly backed Danish sovereignty. Canada is central to any Arctic operational reality. And here is what we don't know whether rhetoric becomes formal policy, whether pressure stays diplomatic or escalates, what Washington is demanding privately behind the scenes. That uncertainty is the leverage environment. Canada has options, not emotional options, strategic ones. Option 1, price cooperation. If the US wants deeper Arctic integration, Canada demands radar funding, infrastructure investment, Canadian industrial participation. Option 2, anchor the rules. Canada reinforces a simple principle. Arctic security matters, but sovereignty and alliance rules are not optional. Option 3, stay indispensable. Canada does not obstruct. Canada does not disappear. Canada stays necessary. Here is the reveal. Trump's Greenland pressure is not really about Greenland. It's about testing whether the United States can bend alliance norms when it feels boxed in. And if that continues, Canada becomes the swing vote of the Arctic. Not because Canada shouts, but because Canada sits in the middle. So here is the real question. If Washington keeps squeezing Greenland, does Canada quietly back Denmark or quietly charge for Arctic cooperation? Drop your take below because this is not the last time Trump tests a border. And Canada won't be able to pretend it's not on the map. If you like the content I make, please hit like and subscribe and join the membership or buy me a coffee if you want to help me keep this channel independent. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.